why aren't these protocols or decentralized networks, if you will, why aren't they getting any attention? Because their valuations to me are skyrocketing right now. I mean, they're falling between like 2 to 8 billion right now, and I'm referring mainly to like Synthetics and Compound and Aave, and one of them has a phenomenal backer who's been a Bitcoiner, let's say, for 8 9 years, which is Andreessen Horowitz, among a few others that have set up in their own venture capital firms around building out this DeFi space. And Compound is that one of those protocols. Why aren't these protocols getting more attention? Do we need to name them unicorns? Like what's the what's the catch here? Because I look at DoorDash and I see DoorDash that just went public, and I get this feeling they may never go they may never be profitable. And you see what decentralized exchange Uniswap is making on the trade. It's like, I think it's 30 BPS per trade or something like that, 0.3. And it's just like when you look at price to book, or however you evaluate the price of the token, it's like, why aren't these things worth more? It's so hard to understand. If you could please help us unpack, why aren't these getting attention? Why aren't they worth more? And I assume that means they have much more room to run.
Yeah, no, it is funny because when I talk to people from traditional finance about this industry, and intuitively they understand how the financial industry is ripe for disruption and is kind of like a late adopter of technology. And then when I tell them that, like, okay, we have this this new sector of crypto that is growing like triple, if not quadruple percentages year over year. These protocols are profitable, even though they're like in some cases less than a year old.
And they have like less than 5 employees sometimes, right? Or like less than 10, right?
Exactly.
I'm sorry to cut you off, but it's such a huge, important factor, right? Like they don't have to scale with employees, right?
Yeah, they're incredibly scalable, right?
Yeah.
I mean, it's actually crazy. Like there are some protocols out there that are like 6 months old, worth $1 billion, making tens of millions of dollars a year, if not even more. And they didn't raise a dime of venture capital. They didn't raise any money in some cases. Yeah. It's like, it's ridiculous. And they literally have like maybe like 5 or 10 people working on it. So, and then on top of that, you can compare their valuations or their market valuations relative to the cash flow they're producing and the growth they're seeing, and you're like, oh wow, this stuff is in some cases actually extremely undervalued, right? I mean, like in some cases you can like buy one of these early stage protocols, right, that is growing like hundreds of percentages a year for a cheaper valuation than some companies in the S&P 500, right? In some cases, you can buy them for like distressed multiples, right? In some cases, you can buy them for like valuations you get if you were to buy like a utility company that's growing 0% a year, right? And there's nothing excited about it, which is insane, right? So, I mean, part of it's just like an awareness thing, because I mean, if you think about even just like a year ago, back in March, many of the most exciting projects actually didn't exist. And then two, if they did exist, like there wasn't a ton of traction, right? I mean, back a year ago, Uniswap was doing about, call it 10, $15 million in volume a day. It's now doing $1 billion, right? It's just, the growth has been absolutely insane. I mean, you're talking about like literally like 100x growth in a year for Uniswap. So yeah, as far as just awareness, and I think that's changing very rapidly. Bitcoin has definitely, raised interest in this industry again, and people are starting to dip their toes. And obviously, once you get into Bitcoin, you're like, okay, well, what else is there? Like, it kind of opens your mind to the idea that there's value in this asset class. So the next thing you go and do is you go to Ethereum, and you're like, oh, well, why is Ethereum valuable? It's like, oh yeah, there's all these applications being built on top of it. It's like, oh, like what about these applications, right? And you see DeFi, and they're like, oh wow, well,
it never ends. It never ends.
And you just go down the rabbit hole.
Yeah. And you suddenly become Alice. You just can't climb out. It's really interesting.
Yeah.
And is it a proper analogy to say, like, I guess Ethereum is kind of like the iOS App Store, except the fact that obviously it's decentralized. It's not owned by, let's say, a profit-seeking institution, obviously like Apple, because everything's built upon, well, not everything, almost everything, whatever it is, and everything is typically built upon Ethereum, and all the developers and the talent and the brain space is there. Is that correct? Right?
Yeah, no, I think this is a decent analogy because you're right. There are like many, if not most, of the most exciting applications in this industry are built on top of Ethereum, and yeah, you almost can think about it as like a decentralized app store in a sense.
And everything's